Alright, for those of you who've been hanging around, I mentioned my dad from time to time. What you're seeing here is just some of his chess game records. Now, if you look at the book on the right, the cover, he actually drew and made a custom cover himself. And it will help you to know that he was an art professor, and before he was an art professor, he was a commercial artist, sign painter, etc. So this guy, you can see, he did this is hand done back, in the old school style. Look at the detail on this, it's pretty crazy. This is just chess records 1981 to 1983. A lot of work. The other thing over here is one of the examples of his score sheets. My dad hated algebraic notation. He said that English descriptive is the only way to write chess. Which is funny because my dad spoke 4 languages and English was the last language of the 4 that he learned. So it was really awesome. And as you can see, he has really good handwriting. Now I'm going to show you some other stuff here in this book just to see just a couple of examples. This is one of the guys from the Texas City Chess Club. Oh, here's an inside cover that he signed. He signed his own book. I mean, that's just how he was. 210 games in actual tournament play. I've told you myself, I've played hundreds of tournament chess games. My dad played almost as much as me. He was one of the biggest chess freaks you've ever seen. But this game here, 1983. Another random one, 1983. Well, this is... Gee, I think this is actually me when I'm a baby. Okay, so my dad's weird. I think this picture is about 1963. Or maybe, yeah, it'd have to be 1963. I was born at the end of 61, so I don't think that's 1962, to be honest with you. So, every game my dad wrote, English descriptive, not algebraic. He hated it. Don't talk to me in algebraic. He didn't use those specific words. There's a nice looking one. These are all U.S. Chess Federation score sheets. I'm going to show you one of his games here in a second. Alright, as you can see in the title of this score sheet, this is July 19th, 1986. At the Cornhusker Games, my dad was living in Nebraska at the time. He was teaching at Wayne State College in Wayne, Nebraska. So this is the actual score sheet from 1986, way back in time. So I'm going to show you this game. It's a pretty good game. You'll get to see the old man in action himself. All right, now I've switched to a computer board where I can input the moves of this game. Like I said, this one was 1986. Essentially the next year, which was actually October of 1987, my wife and I went and visited my parents in Nebraska. And we live, just outside the Houston, Texas area. So we went there to play in this tournament. And actually I have to make a different video of that one. I can't do it here because I have the games from the tournament and stuff like that. I don't remember meeting this guy. I met, I don't know, 20 guys, 25 guys maybe when I was there in Nebraska. My dad introduced me to all these guys. Oh, here's my son, you know. He's like, oh, yeah, yeah, I've heard all about you. I'm like, man, you know, it starts getting weird when people say they've heard about you, you know, after about 15 or 20 guys. So it's a killer story. But I'll get to that one later. It's so good, it deserves its own video. But, you know, just giving you some kind of info. He was, you know, he taught over there for, I don't know, several years. I don't know how long, actually. I didn't pay attention. I'd have to ask my mom. She would know. But, well, you saw the score sheet. Now, the funny thing is, my dad made a couple of minor errors in recording. I did figure out what he did. Wasn't a big deal, so I inputted those moves into the, you know, computer here, so I don't have to fight through that. Not a big deal. I mean, everybody, I mean, I've done it myself. I've written incorrect moves. Now, he wrote more incorrect moves, but we gotta be a little bit understanding. It's his fourth language, okay? So, you know, cut him a break, and it's like, I would never have that problem because I would just write it in algebraic, but my dad is like, pawn to king 4, none of this e4 business. So I'm going to do a couple of these moves and I'll give you literally what it says on the page. All right, the first move, my dad is playing white. And the other guy, his name is Craig Dorsey, he's playing black. So, knight to king bishop 3. This is how my dad plays chess. And if you don't like it, well, that's just too bad. He hated algebraic. You know, it's more exciting to write it in English descriptive. You know, knight to queen bishop 3. But it's, you know, the mathematician and scientist training that I have, pardon me, is I use algebraic. But it's fun to say the moves in English descriptive. And I have a lot of books in both. You know, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I even have a few books in German. Because I studied German. This is a real weird one. I studied German for one reason and one reason only. As a kid, you know, my dad would watch every Western TV show that would show up on TV. It didn't matter. He'd give them all a shot, you know. And after that, after Western shows, his next favorite thing was war movies. So I'd seen a lot of World War II movies. And so I would hear the German soldiers, you know, speaking sometimes. I want to know what they said, so I figured, well, I'll teach myself how to speak German. My mom had a book, one of those Berlitz German and English, you know, books to teach you how to speak German. So I, you know, goofed around with that, and then in high school I took it for a couple of years. So I got to be proficient on a low level. I could go, I'm tourist proficient. I could go to Germany or Austria or Switzerland and get by. I'm not going to set the world on fire or anything like that, but I can get by. And that's about it. So, you know, I wanted to learn to figure out, you know, as much as possible within reason is what they were saying, because sometimes they didn't subtitle the text. So, you know, whatever. That's just one of those things that's funny. So, anyway, I'm guessing this guy is hoping that it'll go back to a king pawn in opening, you know, with knight f3, knight c6. My dad, he loves fianchetto bishops, you know, bishop to g2, or bishop to b2, or b7, or g7 for black. Because when I showed that concept to him, it would have been like the early 80s. He thought that was the greatest thing ever in chess. He had never seen it before. My dad had never studied chess books at all. So the concept of a King's Indian defense to him was just an absolute miracle, I guess is the way to put it. So this guy said, you know, E5, he's going to jump into the center. My dad's like, okay, E4, whatever. See, my dad's not playing. My dad doesn't look at this opening as a double king pawn. Knight F3, knight C6, B3. What the heck opening is this? Who knows? But he's just playing situational chess. Oh, sorry. My mistake. That's not the move he played. He wrote that, I did that one. That's my mistake. There's some other ones that were his mistakes, but this is what he played was D3. Sorry. So, we got this fixed. All right. So this guy's like, okay, get the knight out, get the knights out. Good idea, of course. My dad launches Cobra #1. And that's exactly what he would say. It's very funny. And hey, he's going, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. And my dad's like, well, dude, I'm just threatening to take your pawn. And my dad, he's basically a 1500-ish player. Hey, you give him a pawn like that, he's going to take it. So, jackpot. He's like, terrific. Now the Cobra has an open, line after taking the knight. He was probably thrilled. He's like, oh, you attack the Cobra? Back into the hole. So that's one of the things. My dad enjoyed chess like nobody's business. He had more fun playing chess than I did, because I was working at it. He didn't work at it too much. Although he did have a thing. I haven't found it yet. I will show it to you guys when I find it. My dad wrote every time he'd play a tournament. Whatever bad games he had, he'd go back into the garage and he would pull out his book. He had a thing called his book of mistakes. I swear to you, I got pawn forked today. Oh, I got, queen check and, whatever. So he would have this book of mistakes. It was freaking killer. So he castled. My dad's like, okay, Cobra #2. And, he's like, okay, rook to E8, very good move. Can't argue with that. So my dad is like, okay, he's all ready, time to castle. He didn't tend to get too aggressive and, overreach in general. He wasn't that kind of a player. He was very, well, he's a 1500 player who's had his share of games where he got extended and junk got taken from him. So he, cut that out. All right, so this guy double attacking E2, so guard it, which is good. Better. My dad's like, no F3, because that would block the Cobra, and that's not happening. He doesn't go to all the work to play G3 and Bishop G2 to have it blocked. Okay, I'm just letting you know. Win, lose, or draw, the Cobras are going to be open. That much I can assure you. So yeah, that guy was smart. He played C6 to blunt the power of the Cobra. He's like, well, okay, I'll play this. I'll play, H3. My dad was a, fairly good believer in playing, those kick those bishops back with a pawn. This is one of my dad's mistakes. But, he wrote it. Well, actually what he wrote was bishop to king 4. And I just assumed that he went to the 4th square, which was bishop 4, when it was actually bishop to king 3. Ancient style. So I fixed it when I figured out later on. Just for like several moves, it was the bishop was sitting there hanging. I'm like, why didn't he just take this? My dad's not missing this, okay? You think I'm going to take a free bishop? Man, my dad's going to be at the head of the line to take a free bishop. So I was going through, I go, man, this is just wrong. This dude is cutthroat. He'll take your free bishop and then laugh at your face. Okay, no question. You know, if he knows you. He's not going to laugh at you if he doesn't know you. So you can see my dad already. My dad at this point, this is 1986. So I got him to go to tournaments in 81. So it's not quite 5 years of tournament play at this point, but he's almost at 5 years. And, you know, my dad lives by the Cobra. And knight c3 gets in the way of the Cobra. He doesn't necessarily like to do that. Although he has had some killer games where he somehow spotted tactics where, you know, he played like knight takes pawn, unleashing the Cobra bishop, you know, to devastating effect, a discovered attack. But in general, you could see that, you know, he's a knight to d2 kind of guy. All right, so he's like, okay, that's cool. My dad, remember, my dad has the famous advice. What is he trying to do? Now, this one, obviously, my father clearly is looking at this going, what is this guy trying to do? And, you know, he sees that's aimed double firepower at h3. So good luck with that, buddy. I mean, my dad, I never remembered going over this game. So everything I'm telling you is based upon what we're seeing, as well as my dad's chess persona. So I know how he thinks. I mean, I only played thousands of games against him. No one knows my dad's chess mind more than I do, because I faced it the most. Now that guy, you know, knight to d5, he uncovered his own Cobra. And if he really wanted to be a jerk about it, he should have played knight to g4 check. Now he, you know, I don't know. I don't know. I would think he didn't really know my dad very well. If he did, he would have played knight to g4 check, because my dad would much rather have that bishop on b2 than, you know, he would take the knight, obviously, realizing that he's going to lose that bishop anyway. So he'd take the knight, and then the guy would take his bishop, and now it would kind of demoralize him somewhat to allow him to trade that knight for his bishop, and then double those pawns on g4. So I'm just saying in general. So he goes knight to d5. My dad said, well, you know, if you ain't taking my bishop, I'll take yours. And he found, you know, a good move to play in this position. I mean, really, you have like two choices that for, you know, I think two good moves for choice here. And he played one of the two, which is e4. You know, c4 is just as good, possibly better, because he really can't jump to c3 if he you know wants to have a long life. In this one, he could jump there if he wanted to, but most likely he didn't, because this guy's not exactly a really strong player either, and this, you know, getting a little aggressive. So he's like, nope, go back. No one ever got their knight stolen on f6 versus you know, guarded at f6 versus unguarded at c3. I mean, this is definitely a lower ranked player's move. Very solid, very safe. You know, not too aggressive. So he plays c4, which I think is really good. Objectively, he should have played it first and then played d4, but tomato, tomato. So white's doing pretty well here. You know, he's got a good space. He's doing okay. You know, you can't complain. So he went back with c5. So now my dad is bringing the knight. He's not the greatest player, even 1500 player, but real solid, you know, and it comes and goes for him because we have played literally, and I am not joking, we played thousands of matches in the 70s. Thousands of games. It's unbelievable. It was the 70s. There's no video games. The video game we had in the 70s was chess. So he goes there to f3. This guy goes to b6. Well, I mean, it didn't really do anything. He's probably smarter to play rook e7 and then rook on 8 to e8, to be honest. He can play that move, b6, at any time. There's no threat that white is leveling at him. So he's really he's wasting time that would be better spent doubling his rooks on the only open file. Well, it's half open technically, but I'm saying from his perspective, the rooks only have one opening, and that's, you know, on the E file. I think that's what he should be doing. And screwing around, my dad's not a superstar, but if you screw around, he's going to kick your butt. He has some game, and you're going to see that he has some game. You know, he did a good job with stopping that, you know, h3 pawn attack, etc. He got his pieces are in good position. I mean, this is a solid game. And then my dad, I mean, look, he's on fire. When a 1500 player plays e5 and then d4, you know, that's pretty good. This is not 1500 style chess. Because these are, you know, you're looking at c takes d or e takes d. You know, he should have played e takes d first. Now he can't play e takes d. It's not really very good. That d4 is a really good move. Because now he's staring down. If he plays c takes d, my dad's going to uncork knight takes d4 on him so fast, uncovering that Cobra on g2. You better believe it, baby. He's going to play c takes d, loses to knight takes d4. Rook needs to move to, say, for example, c8. And then my dad's likely to just go ahead and play bishop to c6. It's possible. Or, you know, he might take on, what do you call it? He might take on d6 and play knight to b5. So my dad is actually kicking some butt, you know, for 1500 right here. It's pretty good. d4 is a really good move. Not winning or anything like that, but, you know, just super solid. Sorry, that was my error on input. That's the move the guy played. Queen's rook to queen 1 is what he played. Rook a d8. All right. Well, you're just asking for it now. My dad's going to give it to you. All right. Let's just be honest. My dad is going to give it to him. He went to sleep, and my dad is like, dude, I'm not the greatest player in town, but you give this position to me, he's going to kick your butt. All right. And he lays the hammer on him. d5. He was like probably going, uh-oh. Actually, my dad is winning this and probably didn't quite see that he's winning this. It's a little dangerous. You know, g4, that bishop is dead. All right. What my dad should play here, well, not my dad. You know, it's tough for a 1500 guy to go g4, bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes. This is a scary looking prospect for 1500. However, you know, my dad probably missed the idea right here that it's black who's in trouble. you know, he's basically forced to play queen h5. So with the black pieces as far back and out of position as they are, white is winning this, but it's a little dangerous, and it's just not my dad's style to take that kind of risk. So where did he go? Bishop f5. Oh, okay, yes. He decided instead to play e takes d6. This guy probably saw his life flashing before his eyes with g4 and was thrilled to take this. However, retrospectively, when you look at this, the advantage that white has here with that protected passer at d5, you know, you can't argue too much with the safety. White has a clear advantage with that d5 pawn. He's got a completely safe position. So in that context, it's a good decision that he made. Now, the g4 decision is a better move and is winning, but it's better in the hands of a stronger player, someone who's got more technical ability. And my dad, 1500 players do not have strong technical ability in general. So from a 1500 players perspective, you can't argue with this position. This is a very good position for white. It's not crushing winning, but man, it's really good. Okay. So my dad lays the hammer on him retrospectively. And it's really a strong move, you know, to get that queen on that long diagonal. So his queen is now acting like a super cobra. So this guy is like, and see, this is another mistake. This guy just made a mistake. But again, well, sorry, he did make a mistake because he's queens on d6. G pawn is pinned. Otherwise, g4 and g5 is just absolutely winning. So he almost made a mistake. But if you look at what my dad is doing, he's playing the kind of moves you need to play to cash this game. He's got the big diagonal with this queen. He's got the big file with this rook. He's got a really good position. That d5 pawn is just a nasty pawn. So I don't know what the computer would rank this kind of position, but he's got to be up like, you know, about a +2 ballpark, maybe 1.75. He's got to be well over a pawn ahead. His position is just completely stronger, even though it's just a one pawn differential. The positional advantages for white are quite good. So this dude wisely gets out of dodge. You know, he sees the potential of g4 and g5 coming. So got to give this dude credit. He was awake and paying attention that his knight was a real liability. Look at my dad. He's a freaking superstar. Knight to e5. The old man is going to whip his ass. Okay. It's on, baby. It's on. I mean, look at that knight. You can't touch that knight. That knight is in a terrific position. It's actually sitting there like an eagle, just looking over the entire battlefield. You know, my dad played this nothing opening with this, you know, kind of middle game. A couple of wacky moves. Oh my God, dude, he's like Gary Kasparov. Actually, my dad's favorite was Bobby Fischer, but he liked Kasparov too. Rook e1, you know, challenging the knight, pretty good. I think, yes, my dad played the move of moves. The move that look at this position. and see if you think you can figure out the move that he needs to play. It's pretty basic, but you have to look at this from the perspective of a 1500 player. And when he plays the move, it's like, dude, this is a killer move. So hopefully you guys looked at this, and if you need to pause the video, that's fine. But my dad uncorked F4. He's on fire. I mean, that's just a terrific move. When you're a 1500 player and you get this position, you're like, dude, I'm kicking this guy's butt. Okay? He's just kicking his butt. 1500 style, okay? So, you know, you got to be like, okay. So this guy's like, man, this knight's a jerk. This knight is killing his position potentially, all right? It's really untouchable. You know, even if he takes it, he's not going to take it. He's going to try and play F6. But, you know, he couldn't take it because taking it, E5. Just monster crush, all right? He's going to monster crush him. E5 if that's what he does. E5 and D6, and that super Cobra bishop is going to patrol the long diagonal like nobody's business. So, now, what do you think my dad did? This is a good question. When I saw, look at this, I was like, really? What are you doing? This is what it says on the score sheet. I'm going to put this on there and maybe you can see it. Well, let me get something. Here we go. We'll put this behind it so it won't cut out of the thing. This is the old score sheet. Look at this score sheet. See that move? Very bottom left hand, right above the number 1. Knight takes knight, check. My dad doesn't write plus. He writes a giant check mark. So that's what my dad is. He goes, knight takes knight, check, with a giant check mark. And it's like, oh, crud. So that guy takes it, and then my dad lays the freaking hammer on him. Crunch. So you can see, I mean, this, like, I was just, you know, cruising through a couple of games trying to find something good. And I found this one. Man, my dad had 2 Cobra bishops, and then he replaced one of them with a Cobra queen. So I would have to say, now I know some other games that were really good. I got to find this one. It's a killer story. But that one's another, that's another video for another day whenever I find this game. But my dad laid the hammer on him because the pressure, it's the pressure of my dad's domination of the long diagonals, both of them, the dark diagonal in particular, and the E-file with that knight just sitting there as a figurehead, you know, demonstrating his power. This guy's like, dude, I can't take this knight. He's killing me. So it's his desire to remove this knight by playing F6, you know, that got this guy zipped. So my dad zipped him. Yeah, that's one of his phrases he would say. So knight takes knight, check. And goodbye, Charlie. So that was actually, you know, a pretty darn good game. My dad, his position was never really in trouble the whole time. It wasn't anything spectacular. I mean, you know, you're talking to a couple of, you know, there's a couple of C-level players. You're not going to see, you know, grandmaster stuff. But he did a real good job of controlling the center and controlling the file and then the long diagonals. So you got to give him credit on that one. Pretty fun game to see, you know, the old Cobra man in action. So this is the first game of my dad's that I put on here. So I'll probably go through this and find some more just for you guys to enjoy watching, you know, my dad in action, where I got a lot of those phrases that I used. And, you know, the thing that my dad, I guess his legacy, his one of his main chess legacies is the you know, the advice. Always try to figure out what the opponent is doing. So when he lined up that queen and bishop battery on the light diagonal aiming at h3, my dad jumped up there with king to h2, which was, you know, good to see, because that's where I learned that phrase. He wasn't the best player at figuring it out, but whenever he figured it out, man, it's like he showed you. King h2 shows you the power of his advice. You know, that's where I learned it, and that was just one of those things that was really good. I get to see a lot of my dad's old, what do you call it, methods. Bishop g2, bishop b2. Did a terrific job of playing, you know, e4, e5, and d4. That was some really good chess, you know, that's not your standard 1500 ballpark player stuff. The d4 move was particularly a good move. You know, not the obvious kind of stuff. This is the kind of move, you know, my dad and I would go to tournaments. We started playing tournaments at the University of Houston, and I went to the first tournament. It was really good, and I told my dad, it's like, we had there was a chess club at his college that he taught, and we were in the chess club. We did that, man. And it was big time, you know. And we had about 40 or 50 guys at one time in the summer of '81. And so I went there, played in the tournament. I'm like, man, you got to go. He's like, I don't want to play. I kept telling him about it. And then the next one came up. You know, they had one every month. And so the next one came up. And I don't remember if he went to that one in September or if he went to October. It was one of the two. Was his first. My first tournament was August of '81. Actually 40 years ago, probably in a couple of weeks or so. He went, man, that was like taking the kid on his first Halloween trip. It's like, oh man, free candy? Awesome. That was my dad's free candy. So we played in those tournaments, you know, and there was a lot of guys. My dad watched all these different dudes, and he knew a lot of these guys. He talked to everybody. So, and just one of those things. This is the kind of move that my dad would see the top, you know, top section players, which was above 1800. At the University of Houston, they would have two sections. One was 1800 and above, and then the other one was below 1800. So this D4 was a top section player's move. You know, it's just not your standard 1500. I don't know where he got this idea, but man, it was a good one. So just one of those things, you know, this is just old chess fun. So, you know, I hope you enjoyed this. I have some more in the future, because I have a bunch of stories, because my dad and I played a lot of tournaments together, and I mean a lot. So hope it was as fun for you as it was for me. You guys know what to do. I'll talk to you later.